After 2 years of rescheduling, cancellations and health problems, Judas Priest were finally able to kick off the European leg of their 50 Heavy Metal Years tour. The first European show was probably the most unusual one for all Judas Priest fans, as it was the last-minute addition to the tour, and Judas Priest for the very first time in many years would play a small club show in Berlin, Germany. On this show, probably for the first time since the 1970s, not counting some TV show appearances, Judas Priest performed without any leather and studs, motorcycles, or even stage decorations, creating a very intimate experience between themselves and their German fans. I gotta say that watching the footage of the legendary Judas Priest performing without metal studs and massive stage installations was extremely weird at first. And yet I, as a Judas Priest fan who was blessed to be able to see Priest in full glory with dueling guitars and motorcycle on stage, would have loved to attend an intimate show like the one in Berlin.
As the sun goes down, I will run.
2 days after the show in Berlin, I personally was supposed to see Judas Priest and make an in-person interview with the guys in my hometown, Kyiv, Ukraine. Yeah, the closest I got to Priest was by making a short episode about rock and roll and liking Rob Halford's repost of my stories on Instagram. And so the next stop for Judas Priest instead of Kyiv was the Mystic Festival in Poland. And here, of course, the boys already performed just the way we know Priest to be on stage, bringing out everything that brought them fame and fortune during the past 50 years. The impressive stage production remained exactly the same as it was in the US last year, or for example during the Judas Priest Bloodstock performance. And of course concentrated on the history of Judas Priest and the forging of heavy metal in Birmingham more than 50 years ago. And yet there was one thing which distinguished this performance from any other, at least for me and 40 million other people. Those who are familiar with Judas Priest's live interpretation of the song Blood Red Skies know that just like on the studio versions, by the end of the song, Rob Halford always makes battle cries, mostly shouting "Never surrender."
Never surrender, never surrender.
Yet 2 days after the cancelled show in Ukraine, this song sounded something like this.
Never surrender. Never surrender. Free Ukraine! Free Ukraine! Free Ukraine!
For the past 3 months, I've been receiving multiple questions, especially from Ukrainians, about why Judas Priest are keeping silent about the war in our country. And it is true, in fact, the band did not break their own rule and unfortunately did not release any official statements. Yet I still wanted to point out that Rob Halford was one of the very first musicians and people overall from outside of Ukraine who reached out to me directly and voiced his support of my country. And so I believe what happened in Poland was that when opportunity came, Rob Halford and the team voiced their beliefs, which were there from the very beginning, yet this time on a much larger scale, for which I personally am very thankful.
Free Ukraine! Free Ukraine! Free Ukraine!
The setlist on the European leg of the 50 Heavy Metal Years tour is exactly the same one as we've seen it on the US part of the tour last year. Which of course is no surprise given the fact that 50 Heavy Metal Years tour was supposed to be a large world tour which would spread across the continents and would not get interrupted by COVID, war, or heart problems.
The fact that I'm here able to do it is again, it just means everything.
And I personally gotta say that this setlist might actually be one of the most well-balanced ones the band has ever put out in their career. It features songs from 12 out of 18 studio albums released by Judas Priest to this day, with the champion of all being Painkiller, which I personally love as an album, although I personally think that playing 4 songs from Painkiller on the 50 Heavy Metal Years tour and 0 songs from Stained Glass might be a little bit unfair for the earlier records.
Stand by for Exciter!
Yet the only problem is that I actually understand that if I want Judas Priest to play something from Stained Glass, they would have to drop one of the songs from Painkiller, and I have no idea which one. What was one of the most surprising things for me personally when I saw the original setlist was the actual complexity of songs which made it on this one, since I personally thought that since Rob Halford turned 70 last year, Judas Priest would choose the songs with a much lower register, or at least choose less complex songs, since let's not forget, Ian Hill is 71 and the band's young guitarist Rich Faulkner just suffered a major heart incident right on stage. Yet how wrong I was. Overall, I've gotta say that from what I've seen so far, the band this year looks like a very coherent unit on stage. And I'd even say much more so than they were last year, before the announcement that Andy Sneap will not continue to tour with the guys. And overall, talking about Andy, it feels like after that incident, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, check out the link over here. Andy actually might feel much more comfortable with boys on stage, and is truly giving his best not only musically, but also with his stage presence. So my opinion is, if you do have a chance to see Judas Priest on stage on their 50 Heavy Metal Years tour and you're still contemplating whether you should or should not do that, run and get your tickets right now. Because after almost 53 years on stage, the boys look and sound absolutely amazing. And I'd actually go as far as saying that Rob's voice, from what I've seen in the videos, right now when he's 70, sounds at parts better than it did in the 80s before he got clean. I don't know, but what do you guys personally think? Please let me know in the comments what you personally think about Judas Priest's stage presence in 2022 and whether you are going to see Judas Priest live on their 50 Heavy Metal Years tour, or you already did that and how it was. And once again, on behalf of all Ukrainian heavy metal maniacs, thank you, Judas Priest, for voicing your support and not being afraid to take a stand on the show. This truly means a lot to me and all Ukrainian metalheads, and we'd love to welcome you back in Kyiv, show you around after our victory. Slava Ukraini!